This video is for beginner scripters in Horizon Worlds, or specifically for those who are not familiar with coding but want to move towards creating awesome scripted worlds like these in Horizon Worlds. My personal bio and links to related videos and resources will be in the description of this video. With that, let's get started. In this video, I will be animating this little character that I created to look at players when they get too close. You may find it easier to follow along with today's video if you first watch my videos on what scripting is, variables and value inputs, as well as send events. I'll be using a lot of what was taught there in this video. With that, let's get started. Here I have my character all built with all the objects that make up its head grouped together. I also have a trigger which I will be using to start and stop the animation. The trigger is set to detect players. My first step after naming my script is to create the variables that I will need. I need an object variable for the head, the thing I want to rotate, and a rotation variable to save the starting rotation of the head. Whenever I script something to move or rotate, I always like to save where and how the object was oriented before I moved it, in case I ever want to move it back to how it was. It's a good habit to have, so I recommend you do it too. Next, I go ahead and hook up my script and plug in my variables. Why? So I can test as I write the script. We're team debug as you go over here. I attach my script to the trigger and plug in my owl group to the owl head variable, and I'm ready to go. Back in the script window, I consider my first step, which is to save the starting rotation. Like I said a moment ago, saving the starting rotation means I can always make the owl's head return to facing the direction it started, which in this case is forward. More on that later. So, to save the starting rotation, I go to the Values tab to grab the Set to Code block. This will allow me to fill this variable with the information I need to reference later. Coming over to the Operators tab, I can scroll down and find the Object section that allows you to grab values based on an object that you specify. We'll use this to grab the rotation of the owl's head. Next, we need to grab the When Trigger is Entered by Player event. This will start our animation. This event only works when the script lives on or is connected to a trigger. The action we want to perform comes from the Motions tab. We want to rotate the owl's head to a new rotation. To, not by. We use the Rotate To code block for this. Now, we could type in a rotation, but instead, let's use something that will do it for us. Back on the Operators tab, we need a few things. The first layer is the Look At code block. This block will help us by doing the math needed to use a vector to get the rotation needed to make our owl's head turn in a specific direction. We need to fill in the forward direction, where the owl will look towards, and the up direction of the owl. Let's use some more blocks from the Operators tab to help us out. Let's layer in a minus sign in the compartment that is marked forward. We are going to use two positions, aka vectors, to come up with a forward direction to look towards. Think GPS. we'll need a starting point and a destination before the GPS will give us directions. Our starting point is the owl's head, so we can get the position of it using the position of object code block. While we're here, we can also fill the up space of the look at me code block using the upward direction of object code block that is in the same section of the operators tab. Both code blocks need to be filled by our owl head variable. The last part of the direction equation that goes into the empty slot B is the destination, which in this case is the player. Just like with an object, we can get the position of a player using a code block from the operators tab. This code block is called, you guessed it, position of player. We can leave it on head, but need to tell this block which player we're looking at. So we use the value input that comes with the trigger enter event. And there we have it. The very basic look at me. If you find when you're testing that your character's head is going in the wrong direction, it's an easy fix. Just go inside the group that makes up the head, select all the objects while you're in there, and then rotate the objects in the right direction. Then you should be good to go. As you see, the owl only reacts when I enter the trigger. We need to keep going if we want the owl to follow our movement with its head. Let's start by creating a custom event that will turn into a loop. Let's move our rotation action line to this new event. Now we can use a send event with delay code block to start our loop event. Oh, don't forget to add your player parameters. Now, to make the custom event a loop, we add another send event with delay as the last action in the event. Now, it will repeat itself every time it gets to the end of the event. Our owl continues to look at us, and not just when we first enter the trigger. If you watched my video on sending events, you know that if you start a loop, you should always script a way to stop the loop. So let's do that. Triggers have some default events related to them that you can find in any event dropdown. One of these default events being the empty event. When a player or tagged object enters a trigger, it is considered occupied. When there are no players or tagged objects in the trigger, it's considered empty. Let's use the empty event to tell our loop to stop when there are no players in the trigger. When the trigger is empty, cancel sending the look at loop event with delay. We could stop here, but we haven't used the rotation variable we saved at world start. What we can do is grab another rotate to over time code block and have our owl's head turn back to its starting rotation whenever the trigger is empty. And it works. Our NPC looks like it's more alive by having it turn back as if it's no longer interested in looking at us. Now, the script is working and there's nothing more to do, but for those out there who might need a screenshot of this script sans the side scrolling, let me add another line that will have the script function in the same way, but will allow you to see it broken down a little more. So like I said earlier, the look at me code block lets you use a vector to get a rotation. Instead of doing the math to get that vector directly in that code block, I can make a new vector variable called look direction and set that variable before I use it in the look at me code block. When reading this, remember actions happen in the order they appear. So we need to make sure we fill the containers before we try to use what's in them. This is just one way to write a look at me script. I'm sure there are others out there that write it differently, so don't be afraid to experiment. How you get there isn't as important as arriving at your desired outcome, which for me is an animated owl. If this world isn't published by the time this video is posted, check back in the description where I plan to post a link. I'd love to see everyone visit and leave a pic with your favorite NPC. Leave a comment to this video with the name of your world if this video helped you out. I'd love to visit. That brings us to the end of this video. Since you made it to the end, please leave a like, and if you'd like to see more videos like this one, go ahead and subscribe and hit the bell notification so you'll know right away when a new video goes up. Thanks, and see you in Horizon.